This was it, the little house on the edge of the forest. Luna slid onto a splintered wooden stool just inside the door, the scent of damp earth and old pine filling her lungs, and finally allowed herself to cry. The sound was ragged and raw, a sorrow that had been building for months, now unleashed in this quiet, forgotten place. The floorboards were warped and uneven, a patchwork of generations of footsteps. Dust motes danced in the single shaft of sunlight, cutting through the room, settling on the worn, upholstered furniture and a rusty-framed bed tucked in a shadowy corner. This was her home now. For how long she didn't know. Perhaps forever. She felt like an exile, one who had willingly sent herself away, because the alternative, staying in the city, surrounded by the constant, painful reminders, was simply unbearable. She would have shattered, her mind unspooled by the relentless grief and the echoes of her own failure. Luna had dedicated her life to healing, from the moment she first walked into the gleaming walls of the major medical university. She had known her purpose was to become an oncologist. She devoured textbooks late into the night, spent her summers interning, and began working as a nurse's aide in an oncology ward during her early studies. There, she learned more than just the technical aspects of medicine. She learned compassion. She learned how to hold a hand, how to speak softly, and how to find slivers of hope in the darkest of situations. Most of all, she learned to believe in the power of medicine and the brilliance of the doctors who wielded it. She admired her mentors, seasoned professionals who faced the unimaginable with grace and grit, and she strove to be just like them. And she succeeded. Luna became a top-tier oncologist, swiftly ascending to the position of head of her department at a renowned hospital in Boston. Over the decade that followed, she saw a spectrum of outcomes. Many of her patients fought and won their battles, but some lost. And this past winter, she'd lost a patient who broke something deep inside her. His name was James. He was 42 years old, a carpenter and woodworker, with a laugh as warm as sawdust, and the gentle hands of a man who built things. He was a father to 2 young daughters, one of whom had cerebral palsy. James was the kind of man who was a force of nature, a man who worked tirelessly to provide for his wife and girls, taking on extra contracts and custom jobs just to ensure they had everything they needed. He was a pillar of strength, a granite foundation for his family. He was so focused on building their world that he ignored the subtle signs in his own body until it was far too late. By the time he came to her, he was already at stage 4. The cancer had metastasized. The pain was a constant, vicious companion. He was by all accounts beyond hope, but Luna refused to accept it. She couldn't bear the thought of this good man, this devoted husband and father, leaving his family alone in the world. She knew the odds were stacked against them, but she threw everything she had into the fight. She spent her nights researching, searching for experimental treatments, and consulting with colleagues from all over the country. She lived at the hospital, checking in on James at all hours. An almost obsessive dedication that baffled her colleagues. She couldn't explain it herself. "It's just not right, Sarah," she'd confided to her closest colleague one evening over lukewarm hospital coffee. "I know people die. I know this disease is merciless, but he can't leave. He's the kindest man I've ever met. He has so much left to do here. He has to live." "Luna, we're not gods," Sarah said softly, her hand on Luna's arm. "You've done everything you can. This disease takes who it wants, and you can't shoulder that burden. Just do your work." "I'm not doing enough," Luna insisted, her voice tight with frustration. "Luna, he's fading. Please, let yourself accept it." But she couldn't. The next morning she went to James's room. She spoke of new test results, of a promising lead. She'd leaned in close, her voice a fierce whisper. "Please promise me you won't give up. Chloe is waiting for you." James, his face a landscape of fatigue and pain, managed a small, genuine smile. "I promise, Dr. Simmons. It's just the strength is harder to find now. I'm doing everything to get home to them, but I don't know if I can make it." "You will," Luna said, her voice filled with the conviction she desperately needed to believe herself. "Do you know how much we can accomplish, the two of us together? With effort and faith and a little bit of hope, we can do this. Promise me you won't give in." "I promise," he said, his eyes holding hers with a fragile sincerity. He was gone by lunchtime. His heart, worn and weary, had simply stopped. Luna stood frozen, the news a physical blow. She couldn't save him. She knew rationally that he had been beyond saving, that she had fought a battle that couldn't be won, but the knowledge brought her no comfort. He wasn't her first patient to die, but he was the first she had fought for so personally, so desperately, only to lose. It fell to her to tell his wife, Clara. Clara was a slender woman with eyes the colour of a stormy Atlantic. Eyes that held hope when Luna last saw her. Now they were vacant, like two pieces of dusty glass. "Thank you, Dr. Simmons," Clara said, her voice a dry whisper. "From me and from James. I know how hard you fought for him. I'm so sorry." Luna choked out. I couldn't." She stumbled back to her office, a sterile, silent space that suddenly felt like a cage. She locked the door, dropped onto the leather sofa, and let the sobs take her. She wept for James, for Clara, for herself. She cried from the weight of her exhaustion, from the profound injustice of it all. The phone rang. Someone knocked, but she stayed silent, huddled in the darkness, swallowed by a wild, aching loneliness. The work had been her entire life. So consumed by her calling, Luna had long given up on finding a personal life. Meaningful relationships never took root, and there was no time for children. Her life was the hospital. When she did take a vacation, it was often to a medical conference abroad, and even then, she never truly left her patients behind. She'd cut trips short, cancel plans, or race back to the hospital in the middle of the night. This relentless pace, she now saw, had left her completely hollowed out, a candle burned down to its wick. There was nothing left to give. After James's death, she took a week off, a blur of silent days and sleepless nights. Then, with a hollow resignation, she went to see Dr. Thorne, the head of the hospital, to hand in her resignation. "No, Luna, I can't accept this," he said, pushing the papers back across his large mahogany desk. "Where do you think you're going?" "I understand, sir, and I appreciate everything," she began, her voice brittle. "I know we all get attached, but I don't think I can do this any more. I can't heal anyone. I don't have the strength." "This is your calling, Luna," Dr. Thorne insisted, his tone a mix of paternal concern and professional authority. "Maybe you just need more time. Take a leave of absence." "No," she said, her voice firm. "I'm not coming back. I won't be a doctor any more. Please sign the papers. I'm leaving in 2 weeks." "Where will you go?" he asked, a touch of genuine worry in his eyes. "I don't know yet," she admitted, but I won't be in this hospital." 2 weeks later, Luna was gone. During that brief, frantic time, she sold her perfect little condo in the city and bought the cabin. She couldn't bear to be in the city any longer. Every street corner, every coffee shop held a memory she was not yet ready to face. She felt like a stranger in her own life, as if she had no right to the beautiful things she had built. She had lost herself. "I'm no good at this life," she thought bitterly. Medicine wasn't my calling after all. She packed a single travel suitcase and left for the tiny, forgotten hamlet in the Catskill Mountains, a place she had only seen in pictures online. The cabin was exactly as the photos had shown, a rickety structure with tired paint, but with functioning water and electricity. It was enough. She had purchased it for a steal, a last-ditch effort to find space and solitude. And now, seeing it in person for the first time, she had broken down. It was so shabby and dim, so full of dust and despair. It was the antithesis of her light-filled modern city apartment, but a deep, unshakable certainty told her she had to be here. The house sat on the very edge of the hamlet, its yard a tangle of wild roses and overgrown blackberry bushes. The few pieces of furniture inside were worn, but at least they were something. In the neglected garden, wild plums and apples hung heavy on their branches, promising a harvest. Many of the window panes were cracked, and Luna found herself looking through the fractured glass at the quiet world outside, a reflection of the splintered life she now saw within herself. In the days that followed, the initial grief gave way to a numb, weary rhythm. She cried. She wondered if she had made a terrible mistake in leaving the hospital, but she always came back to the same conclusion. She couldn't have stayed. She couldn't. Soon a new focus emerged, the house itself. Slowly, painstakingly, she began to clean, sweeping away decades of dust. She picked berries, made wild plum preserves, and drank tea in the silent afternoons. The list of chores seemed endless, but one task loomed large: the attic. The stairs leading up were ancient and unstable, and the thought of climbing them filled her with a strange dread. One afternoon, as she scrubbed the small kitchen floor, she heard a faint, insistent tapping. She paused, listening. Had she imagined it? No, there it was again. It was coming from the attic. She had to investigate. With a deep breath, she carefully ascended the creaking stairs and pushed open the door. She had expected the typical attic, a graveyard of broken chairs and forgotten boxes, the detritus of a lifetime. But when she flipped the light switch, a small gasp escaped her lips. Before her was a tiny, perfectly preserved medical office. An old examination couch sat against one wall. A glass-fronted cabinet, hazy with a layer of fine dust, revealed bottles of salves and tablets. A large wooden desk covered in a sheet of glass was piled with faded papers, yellowing anatomy charts, and delicate nature drawings. A discoloured, once white doctor's coat hung on the back of a chair. As Luna approached the desk and began to look at the old medical books, she heard the tapping again. "What are you doing here?" she whispered, noticing a bird flailing against the glass. It was a bird, and it was trapped. "How did you get in here, little one? Through that crack?" she murmured. "Got yourself all tangled up, didn't you? I understand very well." She gently freed the bird, watching it fly out through the window, and turned back to the room. It was more than a room. It was a time capsule, a small luminous space filled with a sense of purpose. A tiny glass vase on the desk held a bouquet of wild flowers, long since dried to a brittle, papery rustle. On the floor sat a black leather doctor's bag. the kind her grandfather had carried. It was clear that this office hadn't been used in decades. In the old cabinet, Luna discovered medications from a bygone era, amber bottles with peeling labels and tiny tins of balms. Then she settled into the old chair, her hand sweeping dust from a worn medical journal on the top of the desk. A postcard fluttered out from between the pages. The image was of a lighthouse on the rocky coast of Maine, and the postcard read 1975. As she flipped through the pages, she saw careful, copperplate handwriting documenting names, diagnoses, and treatments. She kept reading, her fingers tracing the words until she reached the very last entry. Written in a hurried scrawl with a blue pencil, it read, "I have done all that I can, and all that was asked of me. I am leaving. Do not look for me. I no longer have the strength to help anyone. I am so sorry." The entry was signed simply, Penelope Grace. A strange shiver ran down Luna's spine. What a strange puzzle, she thought with a weary sigh. I came here for peace, and I've stumbled into a mystery. Who was Penelope Grace, and how did her story parallel Luna's own so uncannily? She had left her practice and her life behind for the same reasons. The similarities were almost too much to bear. Since arriving at the cabin, Luna had purposefully avoided the few other residents of the hamlet. She had seen some of them from a distance, a handful of elderly people, an occasional young family with children, but she had no desire to connect. Her solitary grief was all-consuming. But as she sat there pondering Penelope Grace, a frantic pounding at her front door ripped her from her thoughts. "Penelope! Penelope! Please, open up! Quick, please!" A man's voice pleaded, frantic and hoarse. Luna descended the creaking stairs and opened the door to find a man she had never seen before. He was an older man, well dressed in clean jeans and a button-down shirt, with a neatly trimmed beard, but on his feet were a pair of house slippers. "Who are you?" he stammered, his eyes wide with a mix of desperation and confusion. "Where is Penelope Grace?" "I'm sorry," Luna said, her voice soft but steady. "She doesn't live here anymore. I own this house." "Oh, no! Oh, no!" he moaned, wringing his hands. "I saw the light in the attic and thought she was here. My Isla, my granddaughter, she's hurt, she needs a doctor." Luna stood frozen for a second, the old doctor in her, fighting with the broken woman she had become. The man's face crumpled with despair. "Please, we need a doctor, my granddaughter." Something inside Luna clicked back into place. She ran to a small box of medical supplies she had brought with her, a habit she couldn't break. Then an impulse took over. She raced back upstairs, grabbed Penelope Grace's old black leather doctor's bag, and hurried back down. "You? You can help?" the man said, his voice filled with a fragile hope. "Yes," Luna said, the word feeling both foreign and profoundly right. "I'm a doctor. Now, show me where she is, quickly." They stumbled down the dark road toward a house on the other side of the hamlet, the old man's short, panicked steps struggling to keep up with Luna's long, determined strides. The house was one of the most well-kept in the village, its porch surrounded by deep red climbing roses. Every window was aglow. This way, the frantic grandfather cried, leading Luna into a brightly lit bedroom. A girl no older than 5 lay motionless on the bed, her face a shocking shade of purple. Her father knelt beside her, his hands gripping his daughter's unresponsive body, a silent, desperate prayer on his lips. Luna's heart hammered against her ribs, but her mind was a quiet, clinical machine. She knelt by the bed, her hands already checking for a pulse. "What happened?" she asked, her voice low and steady. Candy, the father stammered, his eyes wide with a terror that Luna knew well. It was just a little candy. She choked on it, and it just happened so fast. I don't know what to do. The girl's airway was completely blocked. Her chest was still, her small body running out of time. Luna looked at the father, his face streaked with tears and a palpable sense of helplessness. The city, James, her old life, all of it dissolved into a single urgent thought. This girl is dying. Listen to me, Luna said, her voice now sharp with authority. Get me every light you can find and bring me all the clean towels and sheets you have, and a bowl of warm water, now. The men, jolted into action by her command, scrambled to obey. Luna opened both the doctor's bag from the attic and her own small medical kit. From Penelope's old leather bag she found what she needed. A tiny scalpel, its handle tarnished but its edge still razor-sharp. A small, hollow metal tube, a relic of a different time, yet perfect for the task. It was a crude, last-ditch kit for a dire situation, but it was her only hope. She knew, with the cold certainty of a doctor in a crisis, that they couldn't wait for an ambulance. The long, winding road to the nearest hospital would be a death sentence. The men returned, arms laden with lamps, and filled the room with a harsh, unflinching light. The father, his face pale and drawn, held Isla's head steady. Luna, her hands as steady as the stones of the earth, moved with a surgeon's quiet grace. She made a swift, precise incision just below Isla's vocal cords, a cut that felt both brutal and beautiful in its necessity. With a delicate, confident motion she inserted the hollow metal tube into the tiny opening she had created. A whoosh of air filled the silent room. Isla's body, which had been so still, gave a great shuddering gasp. Her tiny lungs filled, her colour began to return, and the father, weeping with relief, collapsed against the bed. Luna, her own heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs, slumped into a chair. She looked down at her hands, the hands that had just saved a life with an old scalpel and a fading lamp in a remote mountain cabin. The familiar, profound exhaustion washed over her, not the soul-crushing weariness she had known in the city, but the deep, bone-tired relief that comes from a battle won. She managed a faint, tired smile. "You got me just in time," she said, her voice raspy. "A few minutes more and I wouldn't have been able to save her." "How do you have so many medical supplies? Are you really a doctor?" the girl's father asked, his voice still trembling with residual panic. "Yes, I'm a doctor," Luna replied, her voice soft but firm. "My supplies are professional. A doctor, after all, is a doctor, no matter where they are. Isla is stable for now, but she still needs to go to a hospital urgently. You have a car, I hope?" "Yes, we have a car. My name is Walter, and this is my son Morris. Thank you. I'm just so grateful," the older man said, his eyes welling with tears. They drove to the hospital in silence. Isla slept with her head in Luna's lap, her small body in a warm weight of trust and new responsibility. Luna, with her hands stroking the girl's soft hair, felt a sense of peace she hadn't expected in years. When the girl was handed over to the doctors, Walter, Morris and Luna stayed in the waiting room. "I've lived in the village my whole life," Walter began. "We never had a proper clinic. The closest one is a long drive away. Our doctor was a woman named Penelope Grace. She was a proper doctor, graduated from medical school, but something happened to her. She left her job, moved out here, and started helping everyone. She'd prescribe a remedy for a sore throat or stitch up a wound. She never wanted to go back to the city hospital, but she felt she had to help people. She was so smart and kind and understanding." He paused, a distant look in his eyes. "Everyone went to Penelope Grace. If her light was on, You knew she was taking patients. And then she just disappeared. We know she started getting sick. No surprise, really. She carried so much of our pain, all of our ailments. I saw her one day on the street. I told her, "Penelope, you look so pale." And she said, "I'm very ill. There's nothing more to be done for me. I'll help people for as long as I can, but then I'll leave." I asked her what she meant, but she didn't say more. I always thought she just went somewhere remote to pass away peacefully, but I don't know for sure where she went or what happened. When I saw your light on in the attic, my mind went haywire. I just prayed it was her, still here, still helping. "I told you, Father, not to give her those little candies," Morris said, his voice tense. "And you wouldn't listen. Kids love sweets, you said. Look what happened. Isla almost died." "Oh, son, I'm so sorry. I was wrong," Walter sighed, turning back to her. "But God sent Luna to us. Are you on vacation, by the way?" "You could say that," Luna said quietly. "I'm taking a break from work." "A break sounds good. Isla and I also decided to rest here a little." "What about her mother? You should call her," Luna asked, surprised by her own directness. "Isla's mother is gone," Walter muttered bitterly, his displeasure evident. "Ran off with some new man. You see, but the child needs a mother." "That's enough, Father," Morris interjected sharply. "That was a long time ago. We're doing just fine." "I can see that," Walter grumbled and headed to get some coffee. After his leaving, Morris said, his eyes full of exhaustion and apology, "Please forgive my father. He's an old man and he just can't get over our divorce. We split up when Isla was a baby. She doesn't even remember her mother. I tell her she went to work in another country. What else am I supposed to say to her?" Morris and Luna exchanged sad glances and fell silent, no longer touching on the subject. The morning sun, a weak and watery gold, filtered through the blinds of the small hospital room. Isla stirred, her eyelids fluttering open, her tiny hand searching for comfort. Morris, who had spent the night in a hard-backed chair, rose to his feet. And then Isla looked at Luna, then at her father, her gaze clearing. "Mummy?" she whispered, her voice weak but full of certainty. "I knew it was you. I was so scared." Luna's breath caught in her throat. Her heart, so recently hardened by grief and failure, now felt like it might break wide open. A mother, the one thing she never thought she could be, the role she had sacrificed for her career. In that moment, she was not just a doctor, not just a healer. She was a source of comfort, of unconditional love. "Don't be afraid any more, my dear," Luna said, a long pause between her words. "I will be near you all the time." She looked up, her eyes locking with Morris's, both of them sharing a moment of profound surprise and understanding. It was so strange. Luna had spent such a short time with these people, yet she felt an incredible connection, a kinship and a sense of responsibility she hadn't felt in years. Was it even possible to feel this way? Her thoughts kept returning to Dr. Penelope Grace, a woman who had worked tirelessly, healing people even while her own body failed her. Luna, on the other hand, was healthy, but she had given up. She had run away. Luna talked to herself, analysing the situation and stealing glances at Morris. He often caught her gaze and offered a small reassuring smile. They had left Isla in the hospital for a few days to recover, and during that time they visited her together every day, Morris, Luna and Walter. One evening, Luna and Morris sat at a small cafe, the scent of fresh coffee and pastries filling the air. He reached across the table and took her hand, his eyes locking with hers. "I need to talk to you," he said, his voice quiet but intense. "In the last 2 weeks, my life has changed in ways I don't even recognize. The terrifying situation with Isla, meeting you, it's like you're our guardian angel." "There's something to that," she replied, a soft smile touching her lips. "Isla thinks you're her mother. I noticed you didn't correct her. Why?" "She's a child who's been through a horrible trauma," Luna said, the doctor in her speaking. "She doesn't need any more stress, and I feel a powerful connection to her. To you, too. You all feel like family to me." Morris's hand tightened around hers. "Luna, I know this is probably all wrong. It should be beautiful with music and flowers and a ring, but I'm so afraid of losing you. Will you marry me?" Luna didn't hesitate. Yes. That's how their story began. Luna moved to the city and returned to her life's work, saving lives. She was still a brilliant and dedicated doctor, but now she no longer lived at the hospital. For the first time in years, she hurried home. Not to an empty cabin or a silent apartment, but to a waiting family, her daughter, Isla, and her husband, Morris.